At 12 minutes past midnight on June 5th, 1968, a 17-year-old busboy named Juan Romero knelt on the concrete floor of a kitchen pantry and cradled the head of a dying United States senator. Around him, an ice machine, a steam table, the smell of stale grease, and the screams of 1,000 people who had been celebrating 30 seconds earlier. Robert Kennedy lay between the produce trays, 3 bullets in his body, his eyes open, asking if everyone else was okay. He was 42 years old, and he had just won California. But the Ambassador Hotel had a design philosophy. Important guests should be routed through hidden service corridors, away from the public. That philosophy put Kennedy in the only hallway where his assassin was waiting. Chapter 1. A palace built on a dirt road. In 1919, the Wilshire Boulevard was a dusty path cutting through barley fields, and a New York financier decided it was the perfect place to build a palace. His name was Simon William Strauss. He had made his fortune selling mortgage bonds in Chicago, and he understood a truth about American ambition that few men grasped so clearly. You do not build where the city already is. You build where the city will be. You buy the dirt cheap. You build the dream tall. Then you wait for the city to arrive at your door and pay whatever you ask. Los Angeles in 1919 was a fever dream of real estate speculation. The population had doubled in a decade. Streetcar lines pushed west from downtown into open farmland, and wherever the tracks went, subdivisions followed. Wilshire Boulevard existed mostly as an idea. In a wide right-of-way stretching from downtown toward the ocean through fields of barley, lima beans, and scattered dairy farms. There were no sidewalks. There were almost no buildings. The road was unpaved past Vermont Avenue. Strauss looked at this emptiness and saw a resort. He assembled a group called the California Hotel Company and hired Myron Hunt, the Pasadena architect who had already built the Huntington Hotel and the Rose Bowl. Hunt was a man who understood scale. He understood that in Southern California, where the landscape offered nothing vertical, a building had to command the land horizontally. It had to sprawl. It had to declare itself not as a structure, but as a destination. Hunt designed a giant H-shaped complex. The main building stretched along Wilshire Boulevard and set far back from the road behind 200 feet of landscaped gardens, palm trees, and a curving motor court. The setback was deliberate. It created a grand approach. Guests would not simply arrive at a hotel. They would enter a kingdom. The vocabulary was Italian Renaissance, filtered through Southern California sunshine, Mediterranean arches, terracotta ornament, red tile roofs, a long colonnaded loggia along the ground floor where guests could stroll in the shade while looking out at gardens that stretched to 8th Street. The building was painted white, and from the boulevard it glowed. The numbers were staggering for 1921. $5 million in construction costs, roughly $85 million in today's money. 1,000 guest rooms, a lobby that could swallow a cathedral, dining rooms, ballrooms, lounges, so writing rooms, a barber shop, a florist, a newsstand, and retail arcades. The Ambassador was not a hotel. It was a self-contained city dropped onto a bean field. Construction began in 1920 and moved fast. The builders poured concrete and laid tile through a Los Angeles summer, racing to meet an opening date of January 1st, 1921. They made it. When the doors opened on New Year's Day, Los Angeles had nothing to compare it to. The nearest luxury competition was the Alexandria Hotel downtown, already fading, and the Hollywood Hotel on Hollywood Boulevard, charming but small. The Ambassador was 3 times larger than anything the city had seen, and Strauss had been right about one thing above all. Wilshire Boulevard did not stay empty. Within 5 years of the Ambassador's opening, the road became the most important commercial corridor in Los Angeles. Office buildings rose, apartment towers followed. The boulevard paved itself in the Ambassador's honor, and the hotel sat at the center of a brand new world, like a palace that had willed its own kingdom into existence. The building had announced its terms. Los Angeles had accepted them. Now the Ambassador needed a soul. It would find one in a room full of fake palm trees and stuffed monkeys with glowing eyes. Chapter 2: The Room Where Hollywood Was Born. The Coconut Grove opened with fake palm trees stolen from a Rudolph Valentino movie, stuffed monkeys with electric amber eyes, and a policy that would make it the most dangerous room in Los Angeles for a celebrity's reputation. The room was not the original plan. When the Ambassador opened in 1921, its main dining venue was the Zinnia Grill, a tasteful and boring restaurant that attracted tasteful and boring crowds. Within months, it was clear that the grill was a failure. Los Angeles in the 20s did not want tasteful. It wanted spectacle. It wanted to feel transported. It wanted to forget that it was a city built on a desert and pretend for one evening that it was somewhere ancient and exotic and dripping with mystery. The hotel's management knew exactly what to do. They converted a ground floor space into a nightclub and filled it with the most extravagant fake tropical scenery money could buy. The palm trees came from the set of Valentino's 1921 film, The Sheik, purchased when Paramount was clearing its lot. Papier-mâché trunks, fronds that rustled when the air conditioning blew, and in the branches, in dozens of stuffed monkeys with amber glass eyes wired to tiny electric bulbs, so that when the house lights went down and the band started playing, the monkeys watched you from the darkness with glowing orange pupils. The ceiling was painted midnight blue and dusted with tiny electric stars. The walls carried Moroccan motifs. A painted Hawaiian moon hung on the southern wall, pale and enormous, shining down on the dance floor like a spotlight from another hemisphere. The whole room was a gorgeous lie, a tropical paradise assembled from movie props and department store fixtures in the middle of a semi-arid basin. It was perfect. It was the most Hollywood room ever built, because Hollywood itself was a gorgeous lie, and the Coconut Grove understood this before Hollywood did. The policy was simple and revolutionary. No cameras, no press photographers, no reporters. The Grove offered something that would become the rarest commodity in 20th century celebrity culture: privacy. Stars could dance, drink, flirt, fight, collapse, and recover without seeing their worst moments in the morning papers. The room became a vault. What happened at the Grove stayed at the Grove. Decades before Las Vegas borrowed the concept, they came immediately. Joan Crawford, still a contract player at MGM, entered the Grove's Charleston dance contests and won so often that the management asked her to stop competing. Rudolph Valentino, whose old movie props now decorated the ceiling, tangoed on the dance floor beneath his own recycled palm trees. Charlie Chaplin held court at corner tables. John Barrymore arrived drunk and left drunker. Lionel Barrymore, in a moment of pure madness, released live monkeys into the fake palms during a party, and the real animals swung among the artificial ones while the orchestra played on. Marion Davies, the actress and mistress of William Randolph Hearst, once rode a white horse through the ambassador's lobby and into the grove. No one stopped her. No one would have dared. The room understood its own importance. It was not merely a nightclub. It was the place where Hollywood went to be itself, unguarded and unrecorded. And anyone who disrupted that sanctuary risked exile from the only room that mattered. The entertainment matched the clientele. The Grove stage launched careers the way Cape Canaveral launched rockets. Bing Crosby sang with the Rhythm Boys at the Grove before anyone outside Los Angeles knew his name. Merv Griffin performed there as a young band leader. In later decades, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Nat King Cole, and Lena Horne all played the room. The Grove's bandstand was where careers went from local to national, from promising to permanent. By the late 1920s, the Coconut Grove was not simply the ambassador's nightclub. It was the ambassador's reason for existing. The hotel was the body, the Grove was the heart, and the heart was beating so loudly that all of America could hear it. The question was what would happen when the rest of America wanted in. Chapter 3. Every President, 6 Oscars, and a Kingdom Complete. Between 1930 and 1943, the ambassador hosted 6 Academy Awards ceremonies, and that was not even close to the most impressive thing about it. Consider what the hotel had become by the middle of the 20th century. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences chose the ambassador's Fiesta Room for its ceremonies in 1930, 1931, 1932, 1934, 1940, and 1941-34, 1940, and 1943. These were not the billion-viewer global telecasts of today. They were intimate industry dinners, 500 people in evening dress eating chicken and waiting to hear who won. But they were the Oscars, and the ambassador hosted more of them than any other single venue. The 1953 Golden Globe Awards were held there. The Emmy Awards used the hotel. The hotel was where the entertainment industry gave itself prizes, which meant it was where the entertainment industry decided what it valued. The ambassador was not just hosting culture, it was shaping it. But the awards were only the most visible layer. Beneath them lay a deeper truth about the building's power. The ambassador had become the place where American power, in all its forms, came to sleep, eat, negotiate, and perform. Every president from Herbert Hoover to Richard Nixon stayed in its suites. Every one. Hoover slept there. Roosevelt held campaign events in its ballrooms. Truman visited. Eisenhower stayed. Kennedy, both John and Robert, used it as a California headquarters. Nixon gave victory and concession speeches from its stages. The ambassador was nonpartisan in the purest sense. It served whoever held or wanted power, and it never asked questions about policy. The guest registers read like an encyclopedia of 20th century fame. Albert Einstein checked in. Howard Hughes kept a suite. Winston Churchill visited during the war years. Nikita Khrushchev, during his bizarre 1959 tour of America, passed through its doors. The building collected dignitaries the way other hotels collected luggage tags. Bing Crosby launched from the Coconut Grove stage to become the best-selling recording artist of the 20th century. Dean Martin, performing at the Grove in the early 1950s, caught the attention of a producer and got his first movie deal. Barbra Streisand played a 3-week engagement at the Grove in the early 60s, and the notices she received helped build the momentum that led to Funny Girl on Broadway and then the film. The Grove was not just a stage, It was an audition room for greatness, and the hotel itself kept growing. By its peak in the 1950s and early 60s, the Ambassador complex covered an entire city block, 1,200 rooms, 37 shops and boutiques in its arcade, a full golf course, a bowling alley, a barber shop with 12 chairs, a beauty salon, a 575-seat movie theater equipped with a 12-pipe organ, its own post office, its own taxi stand, its own florist, newsstand, and travel agency. You could arrive at the Ambassador and never leave for a week without missing anything the city had to offer. The pool was legendary, Olympic-sized, surrounded by cabanas. It hosted swimming competitions and sunbathing celebrities in equal measure. The Lido deck beside the pool was where deals were closed and affairs were started, often simultaneously. Life magazine photographed it. Postcards carried its image to every state in the Union, scaled in numbers. At peak operation, the Ambassador employed over 1,000 workers. Its kitchen served 5,000 meals a day. Its laundry processed 3 tons of linens every 24 hours. Its phone switchboard handled 10,000 calls daily. The boiler room consumed enough fuel to heat a small town. The hotel was not a business. It was an organism. And like any organism, it had parts it did not want you to see. Behind the crystal chandeliers and the midnight blue ceiling and the amber-eyed monkeys, there was an entire hidden world. A world of corridors and pantries and service tunnels and laboring bodies who never set foot on the dance floor except to clear a plate. The Ambassador's most beautiful era was also the era of its most elaborate deception, and the hidden corridors would soon become the most famous rooms in the building. Chapter 4. The corridors guests were never meant to see. Behind the crystal chandeliers and the midnight blue ceiling, there was another Ambassador hotel entirely, and the people who worked there knew a building the guests could not imagine. Every grand hotel has 2 architectures. The first is the one the guest experiences: the lobby, the ballroom, the promenade, the garden. The second is the one the staff navigates: the kitchens, the service corridors, the freight elevators, the laundry tunnels, the pantries, the loading docks. The first architecture is designed to inspire. The second is designed to disappear. The whole point of the service infrastructure is that the guest should never know it exists. The champagne arrives. The bed is made. The flowers are fresh. The machinery that produces these small miracles must remain invisible. If the guest sees backstage, the show is ruined. The Ambassador took this principle further than most hotels. The building's H-shaped floor plan created a natural division between public and private space. The front wings, facing Wilshire Boulevard, held the grand public rooms: the embassy room, the Venetian room, the lobby, the shops, the coconut grove. The rear wings and connecting corridors held the engine room of the operation, a vast kitchen complex, cold storage rooms, pantry passageways, servant stairs, staff dining areas, and a labyrinth of corridors connecting the back of every public room to the loading dock and the service entrance. The kitchen was the heart of this hidden world. It occupied a sprawling area behind the embassy room, the hotel's largest banquet hall, and it was designed to serve thousands of meals per event without a single cook, waiter, or dishwasher being visible to the guests. Food moved from the kitchen through pantry corridors to the embassy room service entrances. Dirty plates returned along the same hidden paths. The system was efficient. It was also, by design, a world of narrow passages, low ceilings, fluorescent lighting, concrete floors, and the constant smell of grease, steam, and industrial detergent. The people who worked in these corridors were, almost without exception, people the ambassador's guests would never have socialized with. The hierarchy was rigid and racial. The maitre d' and the head waiters, the staff who actually appeared in the dining rooms, and were white and often European. Karl Uecker, who would later lead Robert Kennedy through the pantry, was a German immigrant who served as maitre d' of the embassy room. Below the maitre d' came the waiters, then the kitchen staff, then the busboys and dishwashers. The further you descended in the hierarchy, the darker the skin. The cooks were often Mexican-American. The busboys were teenagers, many of them first-generation immigrants. The dishwashers worked in windowless rooms for wages that would not cover a single drink at the Coconut Grove. Pete Hamill, the journalist who was present the night of the assassination, described the pantry where Kennedy was shot as a long, grubby area, the sort of place where Puerto Ricans, blacks and Mexican Americans usually work to fill white stomachs. That sentence is the ambassador's hidden architecture in 13 words. The building was, in its bones, a machine for separating the people who were served from the people who served them. Crystal chandeliers on one side of the wall, concrete and fluorescent tubes on the other. The wall was the point. The wall was the whole idea. In 1949, the hotel underwent a major renovation under architect Paul Revere Williams, the first black architect to become a fellow of the American Institute of Architects. Williams, who had spent his career designing homes and buildings for wealthy white clients, who sometimes refused to sit next to him at meetings, understood the ambassador's dual nature better than anyone. His renovation proposed improvements to the service infrastructure, including better staff facilities and more efficient corridors. Some of these were built, many were not. The service areas remained largely as they had been since 1921, functional, cramped, and deliberately invisible. The ambassador's service corridors were not just passageways, they were routes. When a VIP needed to move through the hotel without being seen by the public, staff would guide them through the back hallways. When a celebrity wanted to leave the Coconut Grove without passing through the lobby, the service corridors offered a discreet exit. When a politician needed to get from a private suite to a ballroom without a crowd slowing them down, the kitchen pantry was the shortcut. This was standard practice. It was hospitality. It was efficiency. It was also the architectural feature that would, on the night of June 4th, 1968, put a presidential candidate on a collision course with his assassin in a room that smelled of old grease and commercial dishwashing soap. The building did not know what it had created. It had simply followed its own logic. Keep the beautiful things in front. Keep the ugly things behind. Route the important people through the hidden corridors when speed or privacy demanded it. The corridors were never supposed to be the story. The corridors were supposed to be invisible. But a young man from Jerusalem had been watching those corridors all night. He had been asking kitchen workers which way the senator would come. And he had positioned himself beside the ice machine in the pantry, in a passageway that existed for only one reason, so that no guest would ever have to see it. The hidden corridor was about to become the most famous room in America. Chapter 5. The Boy from Jerusalem with 20 Years of Malice. Sirhan Bishara. Sirhan was 12 years old when he arrived in California, a quiet and polite boy who had already watched his brother die in the streets of Jerusalem. He was born on March 19, 1944, in the Musrara neighborhood of Jerusalem, then under British Mandate Palestine. His family was Christian Arab, Palestinian by birth and identity, and they lived in a district that sat directly on the armistice line between Jewish and Arab sectors. The neighborhood was a shooting gallery. Snipers fired across rooftops. Explosions shook the walls at night. Bodies lay in the street. Sirhan, still a small child, saw things no child should see. He watched soldiers gun down a man in front of his house. He saw a little girl's body crushed by a military vehicle. He witnessed his older brother, Munir, struck by a truck and killed in front of the family home. His father, Bashara Sirhan, was a hard man made harder by the violence. He beat his sons. He raged. He drank. When the family emigrated to America in 1957, sponsored by a Nazarene church in Pasadena, Bashara lasted less than a year. He abandoned his wife and 5 surviving sons and returned to Jordan. 12-year-old Sirhan watched his father leave and never saw him again. California was supposed to be the rescue. Pasadena was green, quiet, impossibly peaceful compared to Jerusalem. The Sirhan boys enrolled in local schools. Their mother, Mary, worked as a housekeeper and held the family together through sheer endurance. Sirhan was remembered by teachers and neighbors as polite, neatly dressed, soft-spoken. He was small for his age. He smiled easily. He wanted to be a jockey. He enrolled at Pasadena City College and began working at the Santa Anita racetrack, exercising horses in the early morning fog. He was a good rider for a while. Then he was thrown. The fall was not dramatic, but something shifted. He complained of pain and blurred vision. His riding career, the one thing that had given him direction, ended. He drifted. He dropped out of college. He took odd jobs. He sold lemonade at a health food store. He withdrew from friends. Then he found the Rosicrucians, the ancient mystical order Rosae Crucis, a male-order mystical society based in San Jose, offered courses in self-hypnosis, mind control, and the development of psychic power. Sirhan enrolled and studied the lessons obsessively. He practiced self-hypnosis in his bedroom for hours. He believed he could train his mind to achieve anything through concentrated willpower. In his notebooks, he began writing the same phrases over and over in a trance-like repetition that investigators would later call automatic writing. Then came June 1967. The Six-Day War. Israel's devastating military victory over Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. The conquest of the West Bank, Gaza, the Sinai, and the Golan Heights. For Palestinian families like the Sirhans, the war was a catastrophe beyond the original catastrophe of 1948. The land was gone. The dream of return was crushed. And in American newspapers and on American television, Israel's victory was celebrated as a triumph of democratic courage against Arab aggression. Sirhan read the coverage. He watched the celebrations, and something inside him broke in a way that would not heal. Robert Kennedy became the target for a specific reason. During his 1968 presidential campaign, Kennedy pledged to sell 50 Phantom jet fighters to Israel, a significant escalation of American military support. For Sirhan, this was a betrayal. Kennedy, the man who spoke eloquently about poverty and justice and the suffering of minorities, was arming the country that had destroyed Sirhan's homeland. The contradiction was unbearable. The notebooks filled. RFK must be disposed of like his brother was. Robert F. Kennedy must be assassinated before June 5th, 1968. And the most chilling entry, die, 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 die. He wrote these phrases over and over, sometimes in careful script, sometimes in frantic scrawl, page after page. The repetition had the quality of incantation, as if writing the words enough times would make them inevitable. June 5th was not a random date. It was the first anniversary of the start of the Six-Day War. Sirhan chose it with deliberation. On June 2nd, he drove to the Ambassador Hotel. He walked through the lobby. He explored the service corridors. He studied the layout. He was not challenged. The hotel was a public space, open and welcoming. He left and returned on June 4th, the night of the California primary election. He arrived early and spent hours at the hotel. He drank at least 4 Tom Collins cocktails, possibly more. Some witnesses later described him as calm. Others said he seemed agitated. He moved through the hotel's public and service areas. He asked kitchen workers whether Senator Kennedy would come through the pantry after his speech. He positioned himself near the ice machine in the corridor between the embassy room kitchen and the colonial room. He carried a .22 caliber Iver Johnson cadet revolver. It held 8 rounds. Every chamber was loaded. The building had been designed to hide people like Sirhan, servants, workers, the invisible labor force that moved through corridors the guests never saw. On this night, the building's own architecture of concealment gave a killer the perfect hiding place. He stood in the one room designed to be unseen, waiting for the one man whose route would pass through it. The California returns were coming in. Kennedy was winning. And the pantry waited. Chapter 6. 30 seconds in the pantry. The last-minute decision was made by campaign aide Fred Dutton. Instead of walking through the ballroom, the senator would take a shortcut through the kitchen. The California primary results came in strong all evening. Robert Kennedy was winning with 46% of the vote, defeating Eugene McCarthy decisively, and the embassy room was electric with 3,000 supporters packed shoulder to shoulder, chanting and sweating and believing, for the first time in months, that the impossible might actually happen. Kennedy might win the nomination. Kennedy might become president. The country might find its way out of the darkness of Vietnam and Memphis and Dallas. Kennedy watched the returns from Suite 516 on the 5th floor, surrounded by aides, friends, and family. Ethel Kennedy was 6 months pregnant. The room was hot and crowded. When the race was called, Kennedy made his way down to the embassy room to deliver his victory speech. He took the stage shortly after midnight. He thanked his supporters. He praised Don Drysdale, the Dodgers pitcher who had thrown his 6th consecutive shutout that night, a detail that drew cheers and laughter. He spoke about healing the divisions in the country. He spoke about moving on to Chicago and the convention. He ended with the words that would become an epitaph. And now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there. The crowd erupted. The plan had been for Kennedy to leave the stage, walk through the embassy room, and exit through the main ballroom where more supporters waited. But the room was packed. The crowd was surging. Moving the senator through 3,000 ecstatic people would be slow, chaotic, and potentially dangerous. Fred Dutton made the call: the kitchen. They would route Kennedy through the kitchen pantry corridor, a back hallway that connected the embassy room stage to the colonial room where the press was waiting. It was faster. It was the kind of decision that hotel staff and campaign aides made a dozen times a night. Use the service corridor, skip the crowd, get the principal to the next event on time. The security around Kennedy was thin to the point of negligence. The federal government did not provide Secret Service protection to presidential candidates in 1968. That policy would not change until after this very night. Kennedy's security consisted of one former FBI agent named Bill Barry and two unofficial bodyguards, Rayford Johnson, the Olympic decathlete, and Rosie Greer, the professional football player. 3 men. For a candidate who had been receiving death threats for months, in a building with hundreds of unsecured access points. Kennedy stepped off the stage and was guided toward the kitchen corridor. Carl Euchre, the embassy room's maitre d', took Kennedy's right wrist and began leading him through the pantry. The corridor was narrow, concrete floor, stainless steel surfaces, fluorescent lights, an ice machine to the left, a steam table along the right wall. Hotel workers lined the passage, reaching out to shake the senator's hand. Juan Romero was one of them. The 17-year-old busboy had served Kennedy room service in his suite earlier that evening. A steak and a glass of milk. Kennedy had been kind to him, had asked him about his life. Now Romero stood in the pantry corridor, reaching out his hand. Kennedy reached back. At that moment, Sirhan Bishara Sirhan stepped forward from a position near the ice machine. He raised the .22 caliber Iver Johnson revolver and opened fire at point-blank range. The first bullet grazed Kennedy's forehead. The second entered his right armpit. The third, the fatal shot, penetrated behind his right ear and lodged in his brain. The gun kept firing. 5 bystanders were hit. Paul Schrade, a Union official, shot in the head, but surviving. Elizabeth Evans, Ira Goldstein, Erwin Stroll, and William Weissel, all wounded by the remaining rounds. The pantry exploded into chaos. Screams echoed off the concrete walls. Carl Euchre grabbed Sirhan's gun hand and slammed it against the steam table. Rayford Johnson and Rosie Greer tackled Sirhan and wrestled the revolver away. The gun was still clicking on empty chambers. Sirhan had fired all 8 rounds in less than 5 seconds. Kennedy fell backward. Juan Romero caught him. The busboy knelt on the concrete floor and cradled the senator's head. Someone handed Romero a rosary, and he pressed it into Kennedy's hand. Kennedy's eyes were open. Blood pooled beneath his head. "Is everybody okay?" Kennedy asked. "Is Paul all right?" He was asking about Paul Schrade. He was lying on a kitchen floor with a bullet in his brain, and he was asking about someone else. His last words, spoken to Romero, or to no one, or to everyone, and were, "Everything's going to be okay." He was taken to Good Samaritan Hospital. He survived for 26 hours. He never regained consciousness. Robert Francis Kennedy was pronounced dead at 1:44 in the morning on June 6, 1968. He was 42 years old. The ambassador's hidden corridor, the passageway designed to be invisible, was now on every television screen in America. Photographers captured the pantry in searing detail: the concrete floor, the ice machine, the steam table, the fluorescent lights, the blood. The building's most secret room had become its most famous room. The spell was broken. The Ambassador Hotel had spent 47 years showing the world only its most beautiful face. Now the world had seen its kitchen. Now the world had seen what was behind the wall. And no amount of crystal chandeliers or midnight blue ceilings or amber-eyed monkeys could ever make anyone forget the concrete floor and the blood and the busboy holding the dying senator's head. The building had one design principle. That principle had been shattered. And what happens to a building when its reason for existing is destroyed? It dies. Slowly. Chapter 7. The night the music died at the Grove. After the assassination, visiting dignitaries and celebrities did something simple and devastating. They stopped coming. The mechanism was not dramatic. There was no boycott. no public declaration, no organized protest against the Ambassador Hotel. The building had done nothing wrong. Everyone understood that the assassination was the act of one man with a revolver, not the fault of a hotel. But understanding did not matter. Feeling mattered. And the feeling was this: the Ambassador was now the place where Bobby Kennedy died. Conventions canceled. Corporate events moved. The political fundraisers that had once filled the embassy room every month migrated to the Beverly Hilton, which was newer, further west, and untouched by tragedy. The Century Plaza Hotel on the Avenue of the Stars became the preferred address for presidential visits. The ambassador's phone stopped ringing with the calls that mattered. The timing was catastrophic. The assassination coincided with a structural shift in Los Angeles geography that was already underway. Wealth was migrating west. Beverly Hills, Century City, Brentwood, and the West Side were the new centers of money and influence. The Ambassador's stretch of Wilshire Boulevard, once the most prestigious address in the city, it was becoming something else. The Miracle Mile retail district was fading. Department stores were closing. The neighborhood demographics were changing as Korean, Central American, and Filipino immigrants moved into the area. By the 1970s, what had been the Ambassador District was becoming Koreatown. None of this was the hotel's fault, but a grand hotel cannot survive on geography alone. It survives on reputation. And the Ambassador's reputation now carried an asterisk: beautiful, legendary, historic, and also the place where a senator bled to death on a kitchen floor. The Coconut Grove suffered first and worst. The nightclub that had been the hotel's soul, the room where Crawford danced and Crosby sang and Valentino's palm trees held electric monkeys, was dying. The clientele had aged. The music had changed. Rock and roll did not fit in a room designed for big bands and ballroom dancing. The younger Hollywood crowd wanted the whiskey a go-go on Sunset, not a Moroccan-themed supper club on Wilshire. In 1970, the hotel made a desperate decision. It demolished the Coconut Grove. Not the whole room, but enough. The original 1920s decor, the papier-mâché palms, the midnight blue ceiling, the Moroccan walls, the Hawaiian moon, the amber-eyed monkeys, all of it was torn out and replaced with a modern nightclub concept called the Now Grove. Sammy Davis Jr. hosted the reopening. The room was redesigned with shag carpets, mirrored walls, disco lighting, and a sound system tuned for contemporary pop. The stuffed monkeys were gone. The fake stars were gone. The gorgeous lie that had enchanted Hollywood for 50 years was replaced with a generic nightclub that could have been anywhere. It failed. The Now Grove lasted about 2 years before being rebranded back to the Coconut Grove in 1972. But the original magic could not be restored because the original materials had been destroyed. The new Coconut Grove booked lesser acts. The crowds thinned. The room that had launched Bing Crosby was now struggling to fill seats for lounge singers. The hotel's owners, the Shine family, who had purchased the Ambassador in 1946, could not agree on what to do. J. Meyer Shine and later his heirs proposed grand redevelopment plans. A $350 million project called Ambassador International was announced, featuring new towers, commercial space, and a modernized hotel. It never materialized. The plans required financing that the family could not secure and permits that the city would not grant quickly enough. Meanwhile, the building deteriorated. The numbers told the story of the decline with brutal precision. By the early 1980s, The Ambassador was spending less than half of what comparable hotels allocated for maintenance. Tens of millions in deferred upkeep accumulated. Plumbing corroded. Electrical systems aged past code. The swimming pool that Life magazine had photographed was cracked and stained. The lobbies that had welcomed presidents smelled faintly of mildew. The 1,200 rooms that had once been the finest on the West Coast were now dated, shabby, and increasingly vacant. Occupancy rates fell below 50%, then below 40%. Revenue dropped. Staff was cut. The gardens that had created the grand approach from Wilshire Boulevard grew weedy and brown. The Ambassador was still open, still technically operating, still accepting guests. But everyone who walked through its doors could feel it. The building was dying. It was dying the way old hotels die, not in a single catastrophic event, but in 1,000 small surrenders. A light bulb not replaced, a carpet not cleaned, a crack in the wall not patched. Each tiny failure compounding the last until the whole enterprise felt haunted by its own decline. The Ambassador had one final act left, but it would not be a resurrection. It would be a closing, and after the closing, the vultures would come. Chapter 8. A billionaire, a tower, and a parking lot auction. When the Ambassador finally closed on January 3rd, to 1989, exactly 68 years after it opened, the vultures arrived before the locks changed. The end came quietly. The last guests checked out. The last staff clocked off. The doors were locked on a building that had once been the most important address in Los Angeles. 68 years of continuous operation, from the roaring 20s through the Depression, through the war, through Hollywood's golden age, through an assassination, and into the long decline, and then silence. The boilers went cold, the switchboard went dark. The coconut grove, or what was left of it, sat empty for the first time since 1921. The property sold quickly. A group called Wilshire Center Partners acquired the hotel and its land for $64 million. But the real estate market in Los Angeles was about to collapse, and Wilshire Center Partners could not hold on. The Ambassador changed hands again. Enter Donald Trump. In the early 1990s, Trump acquired the Ambassador property and announced a plan that was, even by his standards, enormous. He proposed a 125-story tower, the tallest building on the West Coast, to be built on the hotel grounds at a budget of $1 billion. The tower would be a mixed-use colossus of condominiums, office space, and retail, with Trump's name blazoned across the top. The Ambassador Hotel itself would be demolished to make way. The commercial real estate collapse of the early 90s killed the plan. Financing evaporated. The tower was never built. Trump, facing his own financial difficulties, pivoted to a different strategy. He began liquidating the Ambassador's contents. Silver platters from the embassy room, tiki bowls from the coconut grove, beds, mirrors, lamps, curtains, bathroom fixtures. The Ambassador was stripped for parts, its interior sold off piece by piece to collectors, antique dealers, and curiosity seekers. A building that had hosted presidents was being gutted for the resale value of its silverware. The Los Angeles Unified School District entered the picture in the mid-1990s with a simpler and more practical interest. LAUSD was in crisis. The district served over 700,000 students, and vast swaths of central Los Angeles had almost no school facilities. In the densely populated neighborhoods surrounding the Ambassador, 4,000 students were being bused to schools miles away because there were no campuses nearby. The Ambassador's 24-acre site, See, sitting vacant in the middle of a community that desperately needed schools was the obvious solution. LAUSD began eminent domain proceedings. The legal process was slow, expensive, and contested. A $48 million deposit was made. Bankruptcy courts became involved. The final purchase price was $76.5 million, paid by LAUSD after years of litigation. But while the lawyers fought over the land, something remarkable and strange happened to the building. The vacant ambassador became a movie star. Film location scouts discovered what the hotel's managers had failed to exploit. The ambassador was one of the most versatile and photogenic film locations in the world. Its lobbies, ballrooms, corridors, suites, and grounds could double for any grand hotel, any government building, any institution from any era. And because the building was empty, productions could move in, redecorate at will, and shoot without disturbing guests who no longer existed. The numbers were astonishing. At its peak, the vacant ambassador hosted over 100 film and television productions per year. It appeared in The Graduate. Pretty Woman used it as the Beverly Wilshire Hotel stand-in. Forrest Gump filmed there. Apollo 13, Nixon, The Birdcage, Chaplin, Almost Famous, Seabiscuit, Charlie's Angels, hundreds more. If you watched American movies or television in the 1990s, you saw the Ambassador Hotel. You just did not know it. The building spent its final 16 years pretending to be other buildings. It was the ultimate expression of the Ambassador's original nature, illusion. The hotel that had been designed to show guests only beauty was now showing cameras only fiction. It was a building playing dress up while waiting to die. Every production paid location fees. Every fee went to the entity that owned the property. The ambassador, even in death, was still generating revenue, still performing, still putting on a show. But each production also accelerated the building's decay. Sets were built and torn down. Walls were painted and repainted. Floors were scuffed and scratched. The hotel was being used up, consumed by the very industry it had helped create. And then the preservation battle began, a fight that would last nearly 2 decades, consume millions of dollars in legal fees, draw celebrity activists and political heavyweights into opposing camps, and end with a single letter from the one family whose opinion mattered most. Chapter 9. The letter that ended the fight. For nearly 2 decades, preservationists and the school district waged war over the ambassador's corpse, and then the Kennedy family wrote a single letter that silenced everyone. The Los Angeles Conservancy, the city's most powerful preservation organization, had been watching the ambassador's decline with increasing alarm since the 1980s. The Conservancy understood what the building represented, not just architectural history, but cultural history, social history, the history of entertainment and politics, and the American dream as enacted in one building on one boulevard. The ambassador was irreplaceable. You could not build another one. You could not recreate the Coconut Grove's papier-mâché palms, or the Embassy Room's midnight blue ceiling, or the lobby where Marion Davies rode a white horse. Once it was gone, it was gone. The Conservancy proposed adaptive reuse. Convert the hotel into a school. Keep the historic structures. Build new classrooms around and within the existing buildings. Other cities had done this successfully. Historic hotels had become schools, community centers, mixed-use facilities. The ambassador's bones were strong. The architecture was beautiful. The conversion was feasible. Diane Keaton became the Conservancy's most visible champion. The actress, who had a deep personal passion for architecture and preservation, campaigned publicly and forcefully for saving the hotel. She argued the environmental case. Demolishing the ambassador would send 5 to 15 gallons of oil per square foot of demolished building into the waste stream. She argued the cultural case. The building was a landmark of national significance. She argued the practical case. Renovation could produce a school and preserve history simultaneously. LAUSD argued back with numbers. Renovating the historic structures to meet modern seismic and safety codes would cost an estimated $100 million, more than simply demolishing the hotel and building new. The district was not in the business of historic preservation. It was in the business of educating children. And 4,000 children in the surrounding neighborhood needed a school. Not a museum, not a memorial, a school. The battle raged through the courts. Lawsuits were filed. Environmental impact reports were commissioned. Hearings were held. Architects testified. Historians testified. City council members weighed in. State legislators weighed in. The ambassador became the most contested piece of real estate in Los Angeles, a city that had never been short on real estate controversies. The preservationists had passion. They had celebrity support. They had strong legal arguments. What they did not have was the one thing that might have changed everything. The Kennedy family had remained silent throughout the fight. They had not endorsed preservation. They had not endorsed demolition. They had simply said nothing, and their silence was interpreted by both sides as permission to keep fighting. Then the letter arrived. The Kennedy family, including Ethel Kennedy and several of Robert Kennedy's children, wrote to LAUSD expressing their views on the ambassador's future. The language was clear and devastating to the preservationist cause. Robert Kennedy, the family wrote, would have preferred that the site be used for classrooms rather than preserved as a memorial. He would have wanted children to learn there. He would have chosen the future over the past. The letter did not have legal force. It was not a court ruling, but it had moral authority that no court ruling could match. The family of the man who died in the pantry had spoken, and they had chosen the school. The Conservancy's legal challenges continued but lost momentum. In 2005, the courts ruled in LAUSD's favor. The Conservancy negotiated a settlement that created the Historic Schools Investment Fund, capitalized at $4.9 million, intended to support preservation efforts at other historic school sites in the district. It was a consolation prize, and everyone knew it. Linda Dishman, the Conservancy's executive director, was blunt in her assessment. "We didn't compromise on the Ambassador Hotel," she said. "We lost." On September 10, 2005, the Ambassador held its final public event, an auction in the parking lot. Whatever was left of the hotel's furnishings, the pieces that Trump had not already sold, went on the block. Chandeliers, mirrors, doorknobs, bathroom tiles. People bid on fragments of history, carrying away pieces of the ambassador in the trunks of their cars. Meanwhile, filmmaker Emilio Estevez was shooting his film Bobby, a drama about the hours leading up to the assassination and inside the ambassador. As he filmed in one wing, demolition crews tore down the adjoining wing. The building was simultaneously being immortalized and destroyed, which was perhaps the most ambassador thing that could have happened. The final demolition proceeded through 2005 and 2006. On February 2, 2006, a group of ambassador devotees held an unofficial wake across the street, watching as the last walls came down. They drank champagne. They told stories. They watched the dust rise. The Ambassador Hotel born on a bean field in 1921, was gone. In its place, $578 million of concrete and glass and good intentions were about to rise. The most expensive public school campus in American history was about to be built on the grave of the most glamorous hotel in American history. Whether that exchange was a triumph or a tragedy depends entirely on what you believe buildings are for. Chapter 10. $578 million of forgetting. The most expensive public school ever built in the United States rose from the ambassador's grave, and almost immediately, people began asking whether the price was worth paying. The Robert F. Kennedy Community Schools opened in 2010, and the numbers were staggering from the start. $578 million in total construction costs. A campus designed to serve 4,200 students drawn from a 9-block radius, the same neighborhood where children had been bused to distant schools for decades. The campus was divided into 6 smaller schools sharing the site, each with its own identity and administration, an educational philosophy designed to create intimacy within scale. The timing was brutal. The school opened during the Great Recession. LAUSD was hemorrhaging money. Nearly 3,000 teachers had been laid off across the district. Class sizes were ballooning. Programs were being cut. And into this landscape of scarcity arrived a single campus that had cost more than $500 million. The criticism was immediate and fierce. How could a district that was firing teachers justify the most expensive school construction project in American history? LAUSD defended the cost. The ambassador site had required extensive environmental remediation. The land acquisition had been expensive. The campus included not just classrooms, but a community park, a public pool, an auditorium, and space for adult education. The cost was not for one school, but for 6 schools, a community center, and a public recreation facility. Still, the number hung in the air like an accusation: $578 million. What survived of the ambassador was minimal but deliberate. The entrance facade along Wilshire Boulevard was preserved, its arches and columns incorporated into the new campus design. One wall of the original coconut grove was left standing as a historic fragment. The shell of Paul Revere Williams' coffee shop, a curved modernist structure on the western end of the property, it was preserved and converted into a school facility. The rest was new. The embassy room, where Kennedy gave his victory speech, became the Paul Schrade Library, named for the Union official who was shot in the head that night and survived. The pantry corridor where Kennedy was killed, the concrete floor where Juan Romero knelt and held the senator's head, became a storage room. No marker, no memorial, a storage room. The section of Wilshire Boulevard fronting the school was redesignated Robert F. Kennedy Parkway, which was a gesture, but gestures are what cities offer when they have run out of ideas about how to remember. The original ambassador cost $5 million to build in 1921. The school that replaced it cost $578 million in 2010. Between those two numbers lies a century of American economics, a century of inflation and ambition and forgetting. The children arrived. They filled the classrooms and the hallways and the cafeterias. They played on the grounds where the swimming pool had been. They walked through doors framed by the ambassador's original arches. Almost none of them knew what had happened here. Almost none of their parents told them. The ambassador had been converted into something useful. And usefulness, in America, is how we bury our ghosts. Chapter 11. The Evidence in the Archives. In a climate-controlled vault in Sacramento, the California State Archives holds a .22 caliber Iver Johnson revolver, bullet fragments from 5 human bodies, and the complete police file on the night the ambassador died. The physical evidence of the assassination was transferred from the Los Angeles Police Department to the California State Archives in 1987, nearly 2 decades after the shooting. The transfer was controversial. Some wanted the evidence destroyed. Others wanted it preserved. The archives won. In a temperature and humidity-controlled facility in the state capitol, the gun that killed Robert Kennedy sits alongside the bullet fragments recovered from Kennedy's body and the bodies of the 5 wounded bystanders, the investigative files, the witness transcripts, the forensic reports, and the photographs of the pantry taken hours after the shooting. Kennedy's blood-stained clothing, the shirt, the tie, and the suit jacket he wore that night remains in the custody of the Los Angeles County District Attorney. It has never been publicly displayed. It exists in storage, preserved in evidence bags, a physical trace of the moment a senator's blood soaked into cotton and silk on a concrete floor. The hotel itself lives on in the most unlikely of archives, American cinema. The Ambassador spent its final 16 years as a film location, and the movies it appeared in inadvertently became its preservation record. Pretty Woman captured the hotel's lobby and public rooms in 1990, presenting them as the interior of the Beverly Wilshire. Apollo 13 used the ballroom. Forrest Gump passed through its corridors. The hotel appears in dozens of films, always playing a role, never identified as itself, always pretending to be somewhere grander or somewhere else. Martin Scorsese's 2004 film, The Aviator, recreated the Coconut Grove for a scene depicting Howard Hughes at the height of his Hollywood years. The recreation was based on historical photographs and the memories of people who had been there, because by 2004, the real Coconut Grove existed only as a fragment of a wall on a school construction site. Scorsese's fake grove, built on a soundstage, may now be the most detailed representation of a room that once held every star in Hollywood. Roy Orbison's 1988 television special Black and White Night was filmed at the Ambassador's Coconut Grove in one of the room's last performances. Orbison sang in front of a band that included Bruce Springsteen, Elvis Costello, Tom Waits, and Bonnie Raitt. The special captured the Grove's interior in high-quality video, providing one of the last clear visual records of the room's surviving original features. The Ambassador exists now as fragments: a wall on a school campus, an entrance facade, a coffee shop shell, a revolver in Sacramento, a blood-stained shirt in a district attorney's vault, films in which it plays other buildings, photographs in archives, memories in the minds of people who are themselves aging and dying. The building is gone. But like all demolished buildings, it has not disappeared. It has simply been converted into information, scattered across archives and hard drives and streaming platforms and the fading neurons of human memory. It haunts the films it appeared in. It haunts the school that stands in its place. It haunts the cultural memory of Los Angeles, a city that has always been better at building the future than preserving the past. And somewhere in that climate-controlled vault, the revolver waits, cleaned of fingerprints, emptied of bullets, tagged and cataloged, and filed away. A small machine that changed a building's destiny and, perhaps, a nation's. Chapter 12. The Children Who Walk on History. Every morning, 4,200 students pass through the gates of the Robert F. Kennedy Community Schools, and almost none of them know what happened beneath their feet. They are children of Koreatown, of Pico Union, of Westlake. Their families came from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Korea, the Philippines, Bangladesh. They are the children and grandchildren of immigrants, the descendants of the same communities whose labor once powered the ambassador's invisible corridors. Their parents wash dishes in restaurant kitchens. Their uncles drive trucks. Their mothers clean hotel rooms in the very same city that once hid its hotel workers behind walls so that wealthy guests would never have to see a brown face carrying a tray. The children do not know about the coconut grove. They do not know about the amber-eyed monkeys or the midnight blue ceiling or the Hawaiian moon on the southern wall. They do not know that Joan Crawford danced here, or that Bing Crosby sang here, or that 6 Academy Award ceremonies were held in rooms that are now classrooms and libraries and administrative offices. They do not know that every president from Hoover to Nixon slept on this ground. They do not know about the pantry. They do not know that a 17-year-old busboy held a dying senator's head on a concrete floor that now sits beneath a storage room. They do not know that the corridor where they walked to lunch was once the corridor where Robert Kennedy was routed to his death because the building's design philosophy demanded that important people travel through hidden passages. This forgetting is not a failure. It is a choice. It is the American choice. It is what this country does with its tragedies and its triumphs and its architectural ghosts. We demolish. We rebuild. We choose the future. We choose the children over the shrine. The ambassador's story is the American story in miniature. Build something magnificent on empty land. Fill it with spectacle and create 2 worlds inside one structure. A world of beauty for the guests and a world of labor for the workers. Hide the second world behind walls so completely that the first world forgets it exists. Then watch as tragedy finds the hidden corridor, as the camera finds the kitchen floor, as the thing you most wanted to conceal becomes the thing the whole world sees. The hotel survived the Depression. It survived bankruptcy. It survived the westward flight of money and the eastward drift of poverty. It could not survive the exposure of its own architecture. Once America saw the pantry, once the hidden room became the famous room, the illusion could never be reassembled. The building that was designed to show only beauty was now defined by the ugliest thing that had ever happened inside it. And so it died. And so it was replaced. And so the children came. There is an uncomfortable truth at the center of the ambassador's story. A truth about glamour and violence in American life. They share the same architecture. The beautiful rooms and the bloody pantry were always connected by the same hallway. The crystal chandeliers and the fluorescent tubes ran on the same electrical system. The midnight blue ceiling and the concrete kitchen floor existed under the same roof. The hotel did not become 2 buildings on the night of the assassination. It had always been 2 buildings. The assassination simply forced the world to see both at once. Juan Romero, the busboy who held Kennedy's head, carried that night with him for the rest of his life. He rarely spoke about it. He did not seek attention. He lived quietly in the same city where it happened. When the school was built, he did not attend the opening. The floor where he knelt was now beneath a storage room, and the moment that defined his life had been paved over by $578 million of progress. The Ambassador Hotel asked to be seen only at its most beautiful. In the end, it was remembered only for its most hidden room. The building's struggle to control what the world saw, to keep the beautiful in front and the ugly behind, was a struggle it was always going to lose. Because in America, the hidden corridors always get found. The service entrances always make the news. The pantry always ends up on television. The children walk to class. The sun comes through the arches that once framed the ambassador's grand entrance. The wall of the coconut grove casts its shadow on a playground. Somewhere beneath the foundation, beneath the new concrete and the new pipes and the new wiring, there is a layer of ground that remembers. Ground that held a bean field, then a palace, then blood, then a school. The nation does what it always does. It builds something new on top and moves on.